Whispers in the Halls * Part 1. The Return to St. Helena Chapter 1. The Return. The rain had ended just before the morning bell rang at St. Helena High School. The century-old building stood proudly in the middle of the town, its tall spires cutting into the misty sky, its arched windows reflecting the weak September sun. For most students, the start of a new term meant fresh notebooks, new uniforms, and the buzz of gossip about vacations. But for Maya Sen, it felt different. Maya stopped at the gate, staring at the towering structure with a strange tightness in her chest. The wrought iron arch still bore the Latin motto she had never been able to translate, but the letters seemed darker this year, almost rusted with age. The walls of the school were freshly painted a dull cream, but beneath the paint she could sense something older, something that didn't want to be hidden. She adjusted her backpack and looked at her best friend Ravi, who was fiddling with his phone. You ever get the feeling this place doesn't want us here? She asked. Ravi chuckled. You're being dramatic again. It's just a school, Maya. They fixed the paint, cut the trees, and even put LED lights in the hallways. What's scary about that? Maya didn't answer. She remembered last year's rumors, the stories. Seniors whispered about a forbidden classroom that had been locked up for decades. They said a boy had died in there, though no one agreed on how. Some said suicide. Others said the teachers had covered up something worse. And now, that very room had been reopened. Chapter 2. The Forbidden Door. Their first spirited history class was taught by Mr. Das, an elderly man whose tired eyes seemed to carry too many memories. He shuffled into the room with his usual bundle of books and maps. But instead of beginning with his monotone lecture on ancient civilizations, he had an announcement. As you may have noticed, he began. The east wing of the building has been opened again. The school board has decided to use the old rooms for new sections. Please, stay out of the restricted areas until renovations are complete. A ripple of whispers spread across the classroom. Maya's head snapped toward Ravi, whose smirk told her exactly what he was thinking. Leah, the quiet girl who sat near the window, raised her hand. Sir, is it true someone died in that wing? The class fell silent. Even the humming ceiling fan seemed to pause. Mr. Das's eyes flickered, just for a moment, before he forced a smile. Nonsense, child. Old buildings gather rumors like dust. Pay attention to your lessons instead of fairy tales. But Maya had caught the tremor in his voice. He was lying. Chapter 3. First Signs. That afternoon, Maya, Ravi, and Leah lingered in the corridor of the east wing. The hall smelled different, damp, like old wood left in the rain. The fluorescent lights overhead flickered, buzzing as though struggling against the shadows. At the far end stood the door. Its wood was darker than the others, scarred with faint scratches. Unlike the freshly painted doors of the new classrooms, this one had not been touched. This is it, Ravi whispered, stepping closer. Room 305. Leah shivered. I don't think we should *. Before she could finish, the bell rang. It wasn't the usual sharp metallic sound. This time, it was lower, slower, As if someone were dragging a mallet across rusted iron, Maya pressed her ear against the door. From inside, faintly, came the sound of chalk scraping on a board. Chapter 4. The mark asterisk that night. Maya couldn't sleep. She kept replaying the sound in her mind, the chalk, scratching and dragging across a blackboard in a room that was supposed to be empty. Asterisk, when she finally dozed off, she dreamed of the classroom. The windows were shut tight, the desks broken, and the board covered in words she couldn't read. In the center of the room stood a boy, his face hidden by shadows. He turned slowly toward her, raising a hand to point. Asterisk, she woke up gasping, clutching her bedsheet. Asterisk, the next morning, she found something strange in her notebook. On the last page, in faint white chalk, were 3 words. Asterisk, leave this room. Part 2. Asterisk, asterisk, the first night. Chapter 5. A daring plan. Asterisk. The next few days, at St. Helena High, passed in uneasy silence. Students whispered more and more about the East Wing, though teachers ignored or silenced any mention of it. But the rumors spread like wildfire. A locked room suddenly open. Strange sounds when the halls were empty. Shadows moving where no one should be. Asterisk, Maya, restless and unable to let go of what she'd heard, kept bringing it up to Ravi. Asterisk, something is in that room, she insisted as they sat under the banyan tree outside the school. I heard chalk. I dreamed of a boy standing in there. And don't try to tell me it was my imagination. Asterisk, Ravi rolled his eyes but didn't argue this time. The strange bell tone on the day they'd first visited the corridor had rattled him more than he wanted to admit. Asterisk, Leah joined them quietly, holding her lunchbox untouched. Her pale face said she hadn't been sleeping well either. I've been hearing it too, she confessed suddenly. Last night, I heard the bell ringing in my dreams. But it wasn't here, it was like I was locked inside the school. Asterisk, Maya leaned forward. Then it's not just me. We have to go inside that room. Asterisk, Ravi groaned. At night. You know the guard locks up everything. We'll get caught. Asterisk, we'll sneak in, Maya said firmly, her eyes blazing. If we don't see for ourselves, this will never stop haunting us. Asterisk, and so the plan was made. Friday evening, when the campus was nearly deserted, they would slip back into the school. Chapter 6. Entering the dark. Asterisk. Friday arrived with heavy clouds hanging over the town. By late afternoon, the corridors of St. Helena grew quiet as students left in groups. Laughter echoing faintly before fading into silence. Asterisk, Maya, Ravi, and Leah waited in the library until most of the noise was gone. They slipped out through the back and crept toward the east wing. Their footsteps muffled on the old tiles. Asterisk, the door to room 305 loomed ahead, darker than the rest of the corridor. The air grew colder as they approached, though the weather outside was still humid and heavy. Asterisk, Ravi tried to laugh, but it came out thin. This is just a dusty old room. We'll look, find cobwebs, and go home, okay? No one answered. Maya reached out and pushed the door. Asterisk, it opened with a long, groaning creak. Asterisk, inside, the room was larger than they'd expected. Rows of desks were stacked in the corners, broken and covered in dust. The windows were bolted shut, their panes cracked. But the blackboard stood untouched, smooth and dark, as though someone had just cleaned it. Asterisk, and in the center of that board, written in faint chalk, were the words, asterisk, welcome back. Chapter 7. The Bell asterisk. Leah clutched Maya's arm. This is wrong. We shouldn't be here. Asterisk, but Maya stepped forward, her curiosity stronger than fear. She touched the blackboard gently, expecting the chalk to smear onto her fingers. Strangely, it didn't. The letters stayed crisp, cold to the touch, as though etched into the board itself. Asterisk, suddenly, the sound came again. The bell. Asterisk, it rang, deep and metallic, though the rest of the school was empty. This time it echoed inside the classroom, making the windows tremble. The air grew icy, their breath visible in pale white puffs. Asterisk, Ravi swore under his breath. That's not possible. The electricity's off. The bell system can't. Asterisk, before he could finish, the chalk lifted from the tray. Asterisk, the three of them froze, as it scraped across the blackboard by itself, jagged lines forming. Slowly, painfully, it wrote, asterisk, one of you must stay. Asterisk, Leah screamed. The chalk snapped in half. Falling to the ground, the bell stopped. Silence hung in the air like a suffocating blanket. Chapter 8. Shadows on the walls. Asterisk, Ravi grabbed the door handle. We're leaving now. Asterisk, but the door refused to open. He pulled harder, his palms sweating, but it wouldn't budge. Panic flared in his chest. It's locked. It's locked from the outside. Asterisk, the room darkened, as though a curtain had been pulled across the sky. The faint evening light through the windows turned red. Long shifting shadows spread across the walls, stretching into unnatural shapes. Asterisk, Maya felt the hair on her neck rise. The shadows were not random, they were forming figures. Dozens of them, faceless, hunched like students, sitting at desks, all staring toward the blackboard. Asterisk, Leah's voice shook. There, watching us. Asterisk, the blackboard suddenly cracked down the center with a thunderous sound, like a gunshot. From the crack spilled a thin trail of darkness, curling like smoke. Asterisk, and in the middle of that smoke, a figure began to form. Part 3. The figure that had begun to form from the smoke in room 305 seemed almost human tall. Gaunt, its edges dissolving into shadow. Its eyes glowed, faint red, like embers buried in ash. The faceless student shadows around the room leaned forward, their posture heavy with hunger. Maya's heartbeat pounded in her ears. She seized Leah's trembling hand and yanked her backward. We have to get out, now. Ravi shoved at the door again, and this time, with a sound like wood splintering, it swung open. Cold air rushed into the corridor, carrying with it the stale stink of mold and dust. They bolted into the hallway, not daring to look back. The bell clanged behind them once more, low, dragging, as though it marked their flight. When they finally reached the main staircase, the school was pitch dark, though it was only a little past 6 in the evening. It felt as if they had stepped into a world where the sun had been erased. Leah gasped for breath. It wanted us to stay. Ravi shook his head furiously. No, I'm never going back there. Whatever that was, it's not our problem. But Maya knew better. If they left it alone, It wouldn't stay contained in that room. She could feel it. Something had woken up, and it was watching them. The discovery the next day, Maya couldn't focus on a single lesson. Her thoughts kept returning to the shadows in the classroom, the writing on the blackboard, the figure rising from the smoke. She lingered in the library after school, searching for any mention of room 305 in old school magazines and archives. The librarian, Mrs. Chowdhury, was half asleep at her desk, so Maya slipped into the restricted shelves at the back. Dust coated the books like a second skin. She pulled volumes free, coughing as she scanned titles. Finally, tucked between bound newspapers, she found a thin leather journal, its cover cracked with age. Inside, the handwriting was neat, precise, but grew shakier with each entry. The first page read, "The Diary of Arjun Mehra, 1978. Maya's fingers trembled. Arjun, the name that had floated in the rumors. The boy who had died in the East. She began to read. March 5, 1978. They moved our class to the East Wing today. Room 305 is strange. It smells of wet stone, even when the windows are open. Sometimes, when it's quiet, I hear scratching on the walls. March 12, 1978. The bell rang after school hours again. No one else heard it. I think the others are pretending not to. Mr. Das told me to stop asking questions. He looked scared. March 20th, 1978. Something is wrong with the blackboard. Words appear on it when the room is empty. Yesterday, it wrote my name. Maya's chest tightened. This was no rumor, this was evidence. She turned the page with dread. April 2nd, 1978. They say someone died here before. Another student, 10 years ago. No one will tell me his name. At night, I dream of a boy at the board, pointing at me. April 15th, 1978. It wants me. The room wants me. The shadows sit in the desks, waiting. The bell told me today, one must stay. The final entry sent a chill crawling down Maya's spine. April 18, 1978. If anyone finds this, don't go to room 305. Don't listen to the bell. Don't let it choose you. Because once you enter, you never leave. The last line was scrawled, jagged, as though written in panic. The room does not forgive. Chapter 12. Confessions. That night, Maya called Ravi and Leah to her house. She laid the diary on the table between them. The pages spread open. Leah reads silently, her lips moving, tears brimming in her eyes. So it wasn't just us. This has been happening for decades. Ravi paced the room, running his hands through his hair. This is insane. If the school knows about this, why would they reopen that wing? Why risk it? Maya looked at him sharply. Maybe they don't want anyone to remember. Cover it up, pretend it's just rumors. But this, she tapped the diary. This is proof. Ravi slammed his hand down. Then what do you want us to do? March to the principal with a 40-year-old diary and tell him ghosts are teaching night classes in room 305. Leah whispered. Arjun wrote that one must stay. That means, if no one does, the room won't be satisfied. The thought hung heavy in the air. Maya clenched her fists. Then we have to find out what it wants. And end it. Part for asterisk. The spreading darkness. Questions for Mr. Dast. The next morning, Maya couldn't sit still through history class. Mr. Das's droning voice about colonial India washed over her. But she was watching his face, the nervous twitch in his jaw, the way his hands trembled as he adjusted his spectacles. When the bell rang, she caught his arm before he could leave. "Sir," she said firmly, "I found something." Arjun Mehra's diary. For a heartbeat, the blood drained from Mr. Das's face. He froze, then forced a smile. You shouldn't believe old stories, Maya. That boy was troubled. That's all." Ravi stepped forward, holding nothing back. "Then why did he write about the bell? About shadows? About the blackboard writing by itself?" Mr. Das's eyes darted toward the door. He lowered his voice. "You don't understand. If you stir the past, the room stirs with it. You must stop now." Leah whispered, "Sir, please. People are in danger." We saw it. For the first time, the old man's shoulders slumped, as if some weight had grown too heavy to carry. "It began long before Arjun. That room has claimed many. The school hides it because they fear losing everything. But you children," he looked at them with haunted eyes, "you've already been marked." Maya felt her stomach turn cold. "Marked? What does that mean?" Mr. Das didn't answer. He simply turned away, whispering under his breath, as though to himself, "The last bell never lies." The infection by midweek. The haunting spread beyond the trio. Leah arrived late to class, pale as a sheet. She told them in a trembling voice that she'd heard the bell in her dreams again, but this time, when she woke, her hands were coated in chalk dust. Another student, Nikhil, was found wandering the east corridor at night, mumbling incoherently about the teacher calling roll. He swore he had heard voices in room 305, though no one believed him. Ravi, though skeptical, admitted something strange too. "I was in the canteen yesterday, and I swear I saw one of those shadow students sitting at a table, just staring. When I blinked, it was gone. The curse was no longer confined. It was leaking into the school like water seeping through cracked stone." Maya made a decision. "We need to go back. But this time, not just to look. We need to understand what the night return." They chose Thursday evening. The halls were silent, the watchman distracted on his usual smoke break. The trio carried flashlights this time, along with the diary tucked under Maya's arm. The east wing was colder than ever. Their breaths misted in the beam of their lights. When they reached room 305, the door was already ajar, as if waiting. Inside, the desks had rearranged themselves into neat rows. On each one sat a shadow figure, faint and shifting, but clearly shaped like students. Dozens of them. At the front of the room, the blackboard bore a new message, written in thick, harsh strokes. "Class is in session." Leah whimpered. Ravi muttered a curse. Then the bell rang. Once. Twice. Each toll made the figures more solid, their heads turning in unison toward the living intruders. Maya clutched the diary. "Arjun, what did you want us to see?" The blackboard cracked again, and this time, words appeared in scrawled violet letters. "Attendance." One by one, chalk marks began to write names on the board. Arjun Mehra, Nikhil Sharma, Leah Roy, Raf, Maya Sen. The chalk paused, hovering, Then it drew a line through Nikhil's name. The vanishing scream tore through the corridor. They rushed out of the room, their flashlights jerking wildly, until they reached the stairwell. There, collapsed on the steps, was Nikhil's school bag unzipped, books scattered, his phone buzzing endlessly, but Nikhil himself was gone. Leah fell to her knees, shaking. It took him. Just like it tried to take us, Ravi's voice cracked. No. He must have run, he's hiding somewhere. But Maya knew the truth. The blackboard had crossed out his name. To the room, that meant Nikhil had been claimed, and worse, the next names on the list were theirs. Part 5. The disappearance of Nikhil shattered what little hope Maya and her friends had left. The teachers whispered excuses. His parents took him away suddenly. He must have run off to Delhi, but the students knew the truth. The corridors hummed with fear, every rumor a spark that set nerves ablaze. Maya hardly slept. When she did, her dreams were filled with the tolling of the bell, each strike vibrating through her bones like a death sentence. Every time she woke, her ears rang as though the bell had followed her into the waking world. Leah grew worse. She had started writing names on her notebook compulsively, lines and lines of class roll numbers, until the page tore. When Ravi tried to stop her, she hissed like an animal and clutched the pen until her knuckles turned white. "We can't keep going like this," Maya said one afternoon in the empty library. Her voice cracked, exhaustion plain on her face. "The room isn't just haunting us anymore. It's choosing. Nikhil, he was first. We're next." Ravi slammed his fist against the table. "Then we burn the damn place down. Torch room 305, end this once and for all." But even as he said it, his hands shook. They all remembered Mr. Das's warning. "You've already been marked. Destroying the room wouldn't free them if the curse had already sunk claws into their names." That night, Maya opened Arjun's diary again. She reads the final pages, words scrawled with shaking desperation. "The bell counts us down. Every strike a step closer. When my name is crossed out, I'll no longer exist. If anyone reads this, do not let the roll call finish. Break the cycle. Tear the bell from its place." Her heart hammered. Tear the bell. That was the key. The bell wasn't just a sound, it was an anchor, a tether keeping the curse alive. If they could find it and destroy it, maybe they could end this. But where was it? The diary gave only one cryptic clue. The bell waits where lessons never end. The next day, the trio began their search. The phrase echoed in Maya's mind, "Lessons never end." Could it mean the library? The archives? Some forgotten classroom? They scoured every corner of the school. The basement storerooms reeked of mold and dust, but no bell. The rooftop, the old auditorium, the locked trophy cabinet, nothing. Finally, Leah froze in the East Wing corridor. She pointed to the wall beside room 305, where the plaster was cracked in a thin vertical line. "Look," she whispered. "That's not a wall. That's a door." They pressed against it, and with a groan of ancient hinges, the hidden panel swung inward. A stale, cold draft rushed out, smelling of rust and damp paper. Inside was a narrow staircase spiraling downward. Into darkness, Ravi shone his flashlight ahead. Lessons never end. Detention hall, of course. The old underground rooms. They descended slowly, every step groaning like a scream. The air grew colder, heavier, and the walls were lined with broken chalkboards and smashed desks at the bottom. They found it. A massive, rust-blackened school bell hung from the ceiling of a cavernous chamber. It was larger than any they had seen, carved with strange symbols that writhed when the light touched them. Beneath it, rows of desks faced the bell as if it were a teacher itself, and sitting at those desks were dozens of shadows, silent, waiting. Leah gasped and clutched Maya's hand. Ravi muttered a prayer under his breath. The shadows turned in unison, and then the bell tolled. The sound was unbearable, rattling the chamber like an earthquake. Maya felt her very soul tremble, her heartbeat sinking with the vibration. The blackboard at the front of the chamber lit with ghostly chalk. One by one, the names of every student in their class began to appear. Nikhil's name was already crossed out. Then the chalk hovered over the next. Leah Roy, no. Maya screamed, pulling Leah back. But it was too late. Leah staggered, clutching her chest, her body flickering like static on a broken screen. "Don't let them take me," she choked out. Her voice dissolved into echoes. Her body became translucent, her outline breaking apart into smoky strands. Then, with a flash of cold air, Leah was gone. Only her notebook fell to the ground. Pages fluttering open to the words she had written over and over again. Attendance. Maya dropped to her knees, tears streaming down her face. Not her too. Please, not her too. Ravi grabbed her arm, dragging her up. We don't have time. If it takes the next name, it'll be one of us. We end this now. He pulled a rusted iron rod from the corner and swung at the bell with all his strength. The impact rang through the chamber, louder than thunder. Sparks flew, but the bell did not crack. Instead, the shadows shrieked, a chorus of hollow, inhuman voices. Maya, shaking, remembered Arjun's words, "Tear the bell from its place. Not just strike it." They had to bring it down. She scanned the ceiling. Chains held the bell suspended, links thick as her wrist. Ravi the chains. She shouted. Together they climbed the rickety desks, swinging the iron rod at the corroded links. Each strike echoed with unholy fury. The shadows surged forward, arms stretching, fingers like claws. One chain snapped. The bell lurched, swaying violently. The chalk scrawled again on the board. Maya Sen. The chalk hovered, ready to strike through. No. Ravi roared, striking the final chain. The bell crashed to the ground with an explosion of sound, a deafening blast that tore through the chamber. The shadows shrieked and dissolved into smoke, their forms unraveling. The blackboard shattered into pieces, chalk exploding like ash. For a moment, silence, then the ground rumbled. The chamber walls cracked, dust raining down. Maya, we have to go. Ravi grabbed her hand, hauling her toward the stairs. They scrambled upward as the chamber collapsed behind them. The bell swallowed by falling stone. They burst out into the east wing corridor, coughing, covered in dust. The hidden door slammed shut with a final echo. The school was silent, oppressively so. Maya pressed her ear to the wall, listening. No tolling. No whispers. Just stillness. It's over, Ravi whispered, half in disbelief. We did it. But Maya wasn't so sure. She thought of Arjun's diary. His final plea, do not let the roll call finish. The roll call had been interrupted but not ended. Leah's name was crossed out. Hers had hovered. And Ravi's still remained. That night, Maya dreamt of a classroom again. Empty this time, save for one desk. On it sat Arjun, his face pale, eyes hollow. He leaned forward and whispered, voice like scraping chalk, the last bell has not yet rung. Maya woke with a scream, her ears ringing with phantom sound. The curse wasn't broken, it was only waiting. Part 6. Asterisk. The last lesson. The days after the collapse of the chamber blurred into a haze of fear. Teachers pretended nothing had happened. Leah's desk was empty, yet no one spoke of her. Her name vanished from attendance records. Her files disappeared from the office. It was as though Leah Roy had never existed. Only Maya and Ravi remembered. They sat together in the canteen, untouched food between them. Ravi stared blankly at the tiled floor. We killed the bell. We saw it fall. Why isn't it over? Maya traced circles on the table with her fingertip. Because Arjun was right. It's not about the bullets, about the roll call. It won't stop until every name is marked. Ravi's jaw tightened. Then we're screwed. That night, Maya's dreams grew sharper. She walked the halls of the school alone, her footsteps echoing endlessly. Every door she opened revealed the same classroom, room 305. The desks filled themselves with shadows, one after another, until the room was packed at the front. Leah stood. Not as she had been, but twisted, her skin pale, eyes hollow. She raised a piece of chalk and smiled at Maya. Absent, Leah whispered, and drew a line through Maya's name. Maya woke screaming, clutching her throat, gasping for breath. She knew Nalia wasn't gone. She had become part of the curse, one of the shadows bound to carry it on, and unless they found a way to end it, Maya and Ravi would join her. The following day, Maya dragged Ravi to the library. They pored over old yearbooks, forgotten registers, dusty staff files. With every record, the same pattern emerged: students who had simply disappeared over the decades. Their names struck from rolls, their photographs faded as if erased by time itself. It's always the same, Maya muttered. Every 20 years or so, a class is chosen. Students vanish one by one, their existence wiped clean. And always it ends with the last bell. Ravi slammed the book shut. So what? We're doomed to be erased too. Maya shook her head. Not if we break the pattern. Not if we finish the roll call ourselves. Ravi frowned. What do you mean? She leaned closer, voice low. If the curse feeds on attendance, then maybe we can end it by calling out the roll. But not the school's roll. Our own. Ravi looked doubtful. That's insane. Everything about this is insane, she snapped. Then softer, but it's the only chance we have. That night, they snuck back to the east wing. The hidden door was sealed, but room 305 still waited, its windows black as a void. The moment they stepped inside, the air grew heavy. The blackboard glimmered faintly, chalk already poised. Maya raised her voice, steady despite the fear. This is my class. I'm taking attendance. The shadows froze. The chalk stopped moving. Ravi stared at her. Maya. She began to call names. Arjun Mehra. Silence. Leah Roy. A faint whisper, hollow and echoing. Present. Ravi flinched. Maya continued, voice shaking. Nikhil Sharma. A groan answered from the shadows. Present. The shadows began to stir, leaning forward. Listening. Maya Sen. She forced out. Her own voice echoed back from the blackboard. Absent. Pain shot through her chest like a knife. She stumbled, knees buckling. Ravi caught her. Stop, Maya. It's killing you. But the shadows were chanting now, over and over. Absent, absent, absent. The chalk lifted, ready to strike through her. Ravi ripped the chalk from the air, his hand burning with frost as he grabbed it. He turned to the board, shaking with fury. My turn, he growled. The chalk moved in his hand, alive, trying to resist. But Ravi pressed it against the board, scrawling with desperate strokes. Class dismissed. The shadows screamed. The word echoed through the room like thunder. Desks shattered, windows burst inward, and the blackboard cracked down the middle. Maya clutched her chest, gasping as the pressure lifted. The voices faltered, fading into silence. For a moment, it seemed to work. The room stilled. The shadows dissolved into smoke. The chalk snapped in Ravi's hand, falling lifeless to the ground. Then the bell tolled, not from the chamber below, not from any visible source, but from everywhere at once. A sound that split the world apart. 1 toll, 2, 3. The walls of the classroom bled into darkness. Desks and floors melted away. Maya and Ravi stood in a void filled with endless rows of shadow students, their faces empty, their eyes all fixed on them. At the front stood a teacher, or what looked like one. A tall figure with skin like cracked slate, a face hidden in shadow, holding a book in skeletal hands. The figure opened the book. Pages turned by themselves. The roll call continued. Ravi Kumar, the voice intoned, deep and merciless. Ravi screamed as his body flickered, his outline breaking apart like Leah's had. He grabbed Maya's hand, tears streaming. Don't let them. His voice cut out. His body dissolved into ash and was gone. Maya fell to the ground, sobbing. She was the last, the only one left. The teacher's shadow face turned toward her. Maya Sen. The silence that followed was suffocating. Every shadow leaned closer, waiting. Maya stood on shaking legs. Present, she whispered. The word rang like a spark in the darkness. The book froze. The teacher hesitated. Present, she said louder. I am here. I am still here. The roll call stuttered, its rhythm broken. The shadows shrieked in confusion. The teacher slammed the book shut with a crack that shook the void. The entire room exploded into blinding light. When Maya opened her eyes, she was lying in the schoolyard at dawn. The building loomed silent, windows dark. The east wing was gone, collapsed into rubble, as if it had never existed. Ravi, Leah, Nikhil, all of them were gone. Only Maya remained. She stumbled to her feet, dazed, the morning sun warm against her skin. For the first time in weeks, she heard no bell, no whispers, just silence. But when she looked down at her hand, she saw a faint smear of chalk dust across her palm, and in the breeze that rustled the trees, she thought she heard a voice, soft, hollow, familiar. Attendance is not complete. Maya clutched her head, tears streaming. She was alive, but she wasn't free. She had escaped the roll call for now. The curse still waited. The last lesson had not yet ended. Part 7. The Absent Ones. The silence after the last name was unbearable. The chalk hovered in the air, trembling as if it was impatient. On the blackboard, 3 names gleamed. Defika Rao, Samir Malik, Nandita Bose. None of them answered. The shadows began to shift violently, chairs screeching against the floor. Their whispers thickened, a hive of angry voices. Absent, absent, absent. The teacher slammed the register closed. A sound like a coffin lid. Her blurred face turned toward Ananya's group again, and though her eyes didn't exist, Ananya swore she felt them boring into her skull. Kabir clutched his head. They won't let us go. Not until these 3 show up. But they're not here. Mira wailed. How are we supposed to? The notebook in Ananya's arms pulsed with heat. Words seared into the yellowed page, glowing faintly. She held it up with shaking hands. Find them. Bring them. Or take their place. Ananya's throat went dry.
We have to
Replace the absent. Rohat's face drained of color. Replace. With who? The shadows rose as one, their faceless heads all tilting toward the 4 of them. The meaning was clear. If Devika, Samir, and Nandita did not come, the new names written on the board, Danya Rohit, Mira Kabir, would become the permanent absentees. Meera collapsed against a desk, sobbing. This isn't fair. We didn't do anything. No one ever does, Kabir muttered grimly. His eyes swept the room. But someone started it. Someone broke this first. The bell tolled again, not loud this time, but sharp like a command. The chalk scratched across the board once more. Writing instructions in jagged letters, the absent must be called, and then the walls began to melt, the paint bled, the bricks shivered, and the classroom dissolved into a long, endless corridor. Desks stretched outward into infinity, each row vanishing into mist. Shadows still sat in them, hundreds of them, all whispering, all watching. At the far end of the corridor, 3 doors materialized, one painted red, one blue, one green. Each bore a name. Defika Rao, Samir Malik, Bose. The teacher pointed her skeletal hand at the doors. Rohat's voice shook. They want us to go in there. Ananya shut her eyes, steadying herself. We don't have a choice. Kabir's jaw tightened. Then we split up. No? Mira cried, grabbing his sleeve. Don't say that. If we split, will? The bell thundered, silencing her. The shadows screamed in unison, take your places. The 4 of them staggered back. Without warning, the corridor floor cracked beneath their feet, splitting like shattered glass. The ground opened into 3 separate paths, each one leading to a different colored door. The choice was no longer theirs. The floor tilted, dragging them apart. Ananya clawed for Rohat's hand, but her fingers slipped. She screamed as she tumbled toward the red door. It swallowed her in a blink. Kabir was hurled into the blue door, cursing as he vanished. Mira's cry echoed as the ground yanked her into the green door. Rohit was left alone in the corridor, clutching the notebook. His breath came ragged. The 3 doors had sealed shut, and the shadows all leaned toward him expectantly. The chalk rose again, writing in harsh strokes, "Call attendance." The notebook burned in his hands. On its next page, 3 faint outlines appeared, like spaces waiting to be filled. Devika Samir Nandita. Rohat's lips trembled. Anand Kabir Mira. Where did they go? The shadows whispered back, every voice blending into one. To find the absent, Rohit realized with dawning horror what the notebook wanted. His friends had been sent inside the doors not to rescue, but to become the missing students. And when the bell rang again, he would be the one forced to take attendance. The final 4 weeks after the collapse, Maya lived in a haze. Her parents believed she had suffered a breakdown. They whispered to relatives that stress from exams had taken its toll. The official story from the school was simple: structural failure in the East Wing. Nobody asked too many questions. Leah Ravi. Their names didn't appear in morning announcements, their desks reassigned to new students. Photographs in the yearbook showed gaps where they once had been, pages curling as though time itself had edited them out. Only Maya remembered at night she still heard the bell. Not always, not clearly, but faint, distant, like an echo across decades. Sometimes she woke to find chalk dust on her sheets. Once, she found her own name scrawled on her bedroom mirror. Half-fierced, she clung to Arjun's diary like a lifeline, though its last pages had gone blank after the collapse. She read them over and over anyway, hoping some hidden message might reveal itself. But the words that haunted her most were his final warning: "The last bell never lies." Maya thought she had beaten it. She thought saying present had broken the cycle, but deep down, she knew. The roll call was still waiting. Months passed. Life pretended to move on. New students filled the corridors. Laughter returned to the courtyard. Exams loomed as they always had. Teachers stopped glancing nervously at the East Wing rubble. But for Maya, every day was a test of sanity. One evening, while collecting books from her locker, she heard footsteps echoing down the hall. Slow, deliberate. She turned, but the corridor was empty. Then, on the wall beside her, chalk began to write by itself, "Attendance." Her heart stopped. She dropped her books and ran. Later that night, she dreamed again. Room 305, desks filled with shadows. And at the front Leah, her friend's face was pale, her eyes hollow, but her smile stretched unnaturally wide. "You took my place," Leah whispered. "Now you're one of us." Maya jolted awake, drenched in sweat. She stumbled to her desk and found her school register lying open. Every name was written there, just as it had been in the cursed chamber. Except this time, her own name was written twice. One entry had present, the other had absent. The ink bled across the page, smearing until the words became unreadable. Maya tore the page out and burned it in the sink, watching the flames consume her name. But even as the paper turned to ash, she heard the tolling of the bell, one long, low note that rattled her teeth. The end came on a rainy afternoon. The school had gathered in the auditorium for assembly. The headmaster droned about discipline and achievement, his voice muffled by the rain hammering on the tin roof. Maya sat among hundreds of students, her hands clammy, her heart thundering, and then it happened. The lights flickered. The microphone screeched. A sound rolled through the hall, not the bell by the gate, not any bell she knew, but the bell. That impossible toll that froze blood and silenced thought. One toll, 2, 3. Students shifted uncomfortably, murmuring. The teachers looked confused. But Maya knew. She knew it had come for her. The auditorium doors slammed shut. Darkness swallowed the room. On the stage, a blackboard appeared where none had been, glowing with pale light. Chalk rose, scratching across the surface with violent strokes. Final attendance. Names began to appear. Students gasped, pointing, but no one could move. The chalk flew faster, filling line after line. Some names struck through instantly, others left untouched. Finally, it reached hers. Maya Sen. The chalk hovered. Maya stood, trembling, her voice cracking as she shouted, "Present. I'm here. I'm alive." The chalk paused. The hall waited, breathless. Then, slowly, deliberately, it drew a line through her name. A scream tore from her throat as the world dissolved around her. She felt herself unraveling, her skin splitting into smoke, her body fading. Students around her shouted, but their voices grew distant, distorted, like echoes in a cavern. Her last thought before the darkness swallowed her was of Arjun, of Leah, of Ravi. All of them had been called. All of them had answered. And all of them had been erased. The curse had not been broken. It had simply been waiting for its last student. When the lights flickered back on, the auditorium was silent. There was no sign of Maya. Her chair sat empty, untouched. The teachers carried on, confused but unwilling to speak of what they'd seen. By the next day, no one remembered her. Her desk was reassigned, her records vanished. Her parents woke in the morning certain they had never had a daughter. The world moved on, but deep in the rubble of the East Wing, beneath stone and ash, the great blackened bell stirred. Its cracks sealed. Its surface gleamed, and somewhere in the darkness of forgotten classrooms, a roll call began again. Arjun present, Leah Roy, present Ravi Kumar, present Maya Sen, present. The last bell tolled, and class was in session. Part 80th East Wing had been rebuilt. The administration insisted the collapse was due to old foundations. Contractors came, poured new cement, polished new corridors. Parents praised the renovations. Students marveled at the brighter paint, the fresh floors, the smell of varnished desks. But some places never truly change. Room 305 returned, its number painted clean and white on the door. Teachers avoided assigning classes there, muttering excuses about scheduling conflicts. Yet sooner or later, every classroom must be used. It began again on a humid August morning. A group of juniors, restless and curious, slipped away from morning assembly. Among them was Ananya, sharp-eyed and braver than most. Her friends Rohit, Meera, and Kabir followed her through the freshly painted halls until they reached the East Wing. "Creepy, isn't it?" Meera whispered, brushing dust from her skirt. "This side doesn't feel new at all. It smells." "Wrong," Kabir muttered. "Like old chalk and rust." Ananya grinned. "Exactly why we're here. They say this room was sealed once. Some accident years ago." Rohit snorted. "Ghost stories. Every school has them." "Still, When Ananya pushed open the door to room 305, all of them froze. The air inside was cold. The desks were arranged neatly, as if waiting. At the front stood a blackboard, spotless. Yet faint scratches scarred its surfaces, though hundreds of words had been written and erased. Mira shivered. "I don't like this. Don't be such a baby," Ananya teased, though her voice held a tremor. She stepped forward, trailing her fingers across the desk. The wood was warm. Too warm, as if someone had just been sitting there. Rohit wandered to the teacher's table. He opened a drawer, then cursed and dropped what he found: a small, dust-caked notebook. Its cover was cracked, pages yellowed. Ananya picked it up, brushing dirt away. The first page bore a name written in sharp, desperate strokes: Maya Sen. The ink bled faintly, as though it had been written, only they flipped through the notebook, eyes widening. Inside were fragments of writing: please, warnings, scrawled words repeating endlessly. Attendance, absent, present. The last bell never lies. Mira shoved it shut, pale. "This isn't funny. Let's leave." But Ananya's eyes gleamed. "No, this is proof. Something happened here. Something real." As if on cue, the bell tolled, not the school bell, not the cheerful clang from the courtyard. This was deeper, older, vibrating through the walls, rattling the desks. The blackboard lit faintly. A piece of chalk, untouched, rose into the air and scratched across the surface. Attendance. The floor froze. Rohit laughed nervously. "It's a tricksome projector, or something." Then the chalk wrote the first name, Arjun Mehra. A hollow voice answered from nowhere. "Present," the chalk wrote again. "Leah Roy. Present. Meera screamed. "Who's saying that?" Rohit grabbed Ananya's arm. "We have to go now." But Ananya couldn't move. Her eyes were fixed on the blackboard, where more names were appearing: Maya Sin, Rafbi Kumar, Nikhil Sh. Each one answered by voices that were not voices. Echoes that scraped like nails across glass. Then, beneath those, new names began to form. Ananya. Sharma, Rahitas, Mira Khan, Kabir. Roy. The chalk paused, waiting. Ananya's throat went dry. Her name gleamed on the board, sharp and white, as if carved into stone, and from the rows of empty desks, shadows began to stir. Figures half seen, faces blank, rising slowly, silently. Among them, Ananya thought she recognized outlines, familiar shapes. A boy clutching a diary. A girl with hollow eyes. A tall figure holding chalk. They were not strangers. They were students. Forgotten students. Their voices rose together. A whisper that filled the room. "Class is in session." The bell tolled once more, and the new class had begun. Part 9. Asterisk. The roll call. The air, in room 305, thickened until breathing felt like swallowing smoke. Ananya clutched the cracked notebook to her chest. The voices echoed, each present layering over the next, growing louder, until it was impossible to tell one from another. The chalk still hovered mid-air, quivering like it wanted to write again. Mira's hands shook as she grabbed Rohit's wrist. "We're not supposed to be here. This isn't for us." "Too late," Kabir whispered. His usually steady voice cracked. He pointed toward the back row. "Look." The shadows had grown. They weren't just hazy outlines anymore. They were filling in, gaining shape, texture, weight. Pale skin, ink-black uniforms, hollow sockets where eyes should be. One by one, the empty desks filled with them. Some slouched as if exhausted. Others sat perfectly upright, their hands folded, waiting like obedient students. At the very center, in the teacher's chair, something larger stirred. It was a woman's shape, or what was left of one. Her face was smeared, blurred like wet paint. Her hair fell in uneven strands, moving without wind. In her skeletal hands she clutched a register book so old its pages looked ready to crumble. Her head turned toward them. And though her face was featureless, they all felt her gaze pierce through. The chalk scratched again across the board. Ananya Sharma, a pause. The silence was unbearable. The specter's head tilted. The shadows leaned forward. Ananya's lips parted, though her mind screamed against it. She didn't want to answer. She didn't want to give them what they wanted. But her throat burned, forcing sound out. Present. The word echoed unnaturally, reverberating from desk to desk. The shadows straightened, satisfied. The chalk moved on. Rohit Das. Rohit stumbled backward, shaking his head violently. No, no, screw this. I'm not saying it, I'm not. The bell tolled, deafening. His body convulsed. A cry tore from his mouth against his will. Present. And again, the voices of the shadows layered his word until the whole room shook. Meera sobbed, covering her mouth, but she already knew. She was next. Meera Khan. Her knees buckled. I'm not here, please. The featureless teacher slammed her register shut with a sound like thunder. The chalk screeched violently until sparks flew, carving the word onto the board by force. Mira's own voice burst out of her throat, raw and strangled. Present. She collapsed into a desk, trembling, tears streaking her face. Kabir's turn came last. He clenched his fists, jaw set, sweat dripping down his temple. I won't play your game. But the shadows nearest to him rose from their seats, advancing with unnatural jerks, hands stretching, pointing. Their whisper grew louder, circling him like a curse. Present, present, present. Kabir screamed and shoved his hands over his ears. But still, the word ripped from his throat. Loud, hollow, final, present. And with that, the chalk dropped. The bell tolled again. This time, it didn't stop. The sound dragged on, long and low, until the walls trembled and dust fell from the ceiling. The blackboard flickered with faint light, revealing faint etchings beneath the fresh chalk. Hundreds of names layered over years, decades, maybe longer. Some names were scratched so deep they had carved grooves into the slate. Rohit staggered toward the door, but it slammed shut before he could touch it. He pounded on it, screaming for help. The windows sealed, their glass darkening until nothing but void stared back. The classroom was no longer part of the school. It was something else entirely. The teacher rose from her chair. Her blurred face shifted, flickered, almost forming features before dissolving again. She pointed at Ananya, then the notebook in her hands. Ananya looked down. The cracked cover had split further during the roll call. On the inside page, beneath Maya Sen's name, something new had appeared. Ananya Sharma, Rohit Das, Mira kan. Kabir Roy. The ink was wet. Fresh. Mira whimpered. We're part of it now, no. Ananya's voice was hoarse but firm. We're not finished. There has to be a way out. The teacher's blurred head tilted again. The bell finally stopped tolling. And then she spoke not with sound, but with hundreds of voices at once, echoing inside their skulls. Class is eternal. The lesson never ends. The shadows whispered in unison. Never ends. Never ends. Never ends. The notebook burned hot in Ananya's hands. She hissed, nearly dropping it. Letters were appearing on the page without anyone writing them. Find the absent. Only then may you leave. The words etched themselves deep into the paper. Ananya's eyes widened. She looked up at the teacher. The absent? What does that mean? But the blurred woman only raised her register and began flipping pages. The rustling sound like bones scraping together. The chalk rose again, writing 3 more names on the blackboard ones. None of them recognized. Defika Rao, Samir Malik Bose. The chalk paused, waiting. No voices answered. The shadows shifted restlessly. Some leaned forward, whispering. Others twisted unnaturally, their heads jerking toward the newcomers. Ananya understood. These were the absent, whoever they were, they hadn't answered. And until they did, the class would never dismiss. Part 10. The absent ones. The silence after the last name was unbearable. The chalk hovered in the air, trembling as if it was impatient. On the blackboard, 3 names gleamed. Defika Rao, Samir Malik, Nandita Bose. None of them answered. The shadows began to shift violently, chairs screeching against the floor. Their whispers thickened, a hive of angry voices. Absent, absent, absent. The teacher slammed the register closed. A sound like a coffin lid. Her blurred face turned toward Ananya's group again. And though her eyes didn't exist, Ananya swore she felt them boring into her skull. Kabir clutched his head. They won't let us go. Not until these 3 show up. But they're not here. Mira wailed. How are we supposed to The notebook in Ananya's arms pulsed with heat. Words seared into the yellowed page, glowing faintly. She held it up with shaking hands. Find them. Bring them. Or take their place. Ananya's throat went dry. We have to replace the absent. Roat's face drained of color. Replace. With who? The shadows rose as one, their faceless heads all tilting toward the 4 of them. The meaning was clear. If Devika, Samir, and Nandita did not come, the new names written on the board Ananya, Rohit, Mira, Kabira would become the permanent absentees. Mira collapsed against a desk, sobbing. This isn't fair. We didn't do anything. No one ever does, Kabir muttered grimly. His eyes swept the room. But someone started it. Someone broke this first. The bell tolled again, not loud this time, but sharp, like a command. The chalk scratched across the board once more. Writing instructions in jagged letters. The absent must be called. And then the walls began to melt. Asterisk, the paint bled, the bricks shivered, and the classroom dissolved into a long, endless corridor. Desks stretched outward into infinity, each row vanishing into mist. Shadows still sat in them, hundreds of them, all whispering, all watching. Asterisk, at the far end of the corridor, 3 doors materialized, one painted red, one blue, one green. Each bore a name: Devika Rao, Samir Malik, Nandita Bose. The teacher pointed her skeletal hand at the doors. Asterisk, Rohat's voice shook. They want us to go in there. Asterisk, Ananya shut her eyes, steadying herself. We don't have a choice. Asterisk, Kabir's jaw tightened. Then we split up. Asterisk, no. Mira cried, grabbing his sleeve. Don't say that. If we split, we'll asterisk, the bell thundered, silencing her. The shadows screamed in unison, take your places. Asterisk, the 4 of them staggered back. Without warning, the corridor floor cracked beneath their feet, splitting like shattered glass. The ground opened into 3 separate paths, each one leading to a different colored door. The choice was no longer theirs. The floor tilted, dragging them apart. Asterisk, Ananya clawed for Rohat's hand, but her fingers slipped. She screamed as she tumbled toward the red door. It swallowed her in a blink. Asterisk, Kabir was hurled into the blue door, cursing as he vanished. Asterisk, Mira's cry echoed as the ground yanked her into the green door. Asterisk, Rohit was left alone in the corridor, clutching the notebook. His breath came ragged. The 3 doors had sealed shut, and the shadows all leaned toward him. Expectantly. Asterisk, the chalk rose again, writing in harsh strokes. Asterisk, call attendance. Asterisk, the notebook burned in his hands. On its next page, 3 faint outlines appeared, like spaces waiting to be filled. Devika, Samir, Nandita. Rohat's lips trembled. Anand, Kabir, Mira. Where did they go? The shadows whispered back, every voice blending into one, to find the absent. Asterisk, Rohit realized with dawning horror what the notebook wanted. His friends had been sent inside the doors not to rescue, but to become the missing students. Asterisk, and when the bell rang again, he would be the one forced to take attendance.